Early childhood education has been one of the tenets of things that we've worked on. It kind of hit home. My first year at MEC 14 years ago, I got a phone call from a reporter saying, you know, why is the business community so interested in education? It took me aback just a little bit, but I kind of explained to her what happens now is going to impact the future. Thinking back, those preschoolers, kindergartners at that time are now graduating from high school. They're now getting ready into the workforce. Time flies. So it's very important that we continue to focus on this issue and really find ways to make a difference. We have a very exciting panel ready. I see they're on stage here. We'll turn it over to them. Real quickly, I want to bring to your attention the fact that in your seats you will see bios of each of the folks that are on the panel, and so I won't go through any long detail in introducing them, but I will say that this panel is really designed for one reason. It's titled Capitalizing on Our Differences, the Strategic Priority for Businesses, Success, and Community Growth. You know, workforce is really where all of our focus has been and needs to be over the last few years. But when we think about workforce, there's so many aspects of it. Today's workforce is very diverse in age, in race, in gender. All of those things are part of making sure that we're capitalizing on that to create that type of workforce that gives us the diverse and inclusive workplace where we can be productive, where we can work and make a difference for making our businesses very successful. The panel this morning includes Ed Johnson with Atmos Energy, KIMBERLY NASTASI with Ingalls Shipbuilding, LAKEYSHA, who is president of the Jackson Junior League and an attorney here in Jackson, BRANDT Galloway with Galloway-Chandler-McKinney Insurance, and then Judd Wilson from the Community Development Foundation. And it's being moderated by our COO, CATHY Northington, who really has put a lot of effort in making this, bringing this panel together. So if you would, please welcome our panel.
Thank you, Scott. I think I've been here for 16 years, and I don't think I've ever heard Mississippi Economic Council being called the heart and soul of economic development. But I think I like that. Mississippi Economic Council, the heart and soul of economic development. I think that's a powerful way and a diverse way to bring this panel on. And as Scott said, the bios are in your seats, so I'm not going to read them to you, but we're just going to talk about, we've heard this word a lot today, workforce development. We've heard it a lot the past month, the past few years, and we're going to add diversity to it and the importance of diversity in the workforce, how vital it is for it to grow. Mississippi Economic Council is committed to making sure the workforce is diverse. It's the standard. It's just not a checkbox. It's not something we do. It's going to be the standard for our business community, and it's going to be the standard for our communities for growth. And so for that, we're going to get started. And Ed, if we can, I want to start with you. And the reason why you're with Atmos Energy. Like I said, I've worked with the Mississippi Economic Council, and everyone that I've dealt with from Atmos, they have this energy about them. It's a positive energy. It's an easy energy, and it's a unique energy. And from understanding, years ago, they decided they were bringing all these cultures together with one company, and they wanted to have the spirit. They understood that they were going to be proactive and not reactive in bringing this together. And I would say they were strategic before they were tactical. So can you tell us about this atmosphere and how you were diverse, but you weren't just diverse, you were inclusive with all these cultures you were bringing together to bring one company, Atmos Energy, to the forefront? Absolutely.
Can y'all, oh, there we go. Yeah, it's definitely a unique culture, Kathy. You know, we were fortunate to have some really great leaders throughout the history of Atmos Energy, you know, who really believed in people. And you know, Bob Best, which is one of our former presidents and CEOs, he used to always say that, you know, employees are the heartbeat of this company. And without a healthy heart, you cannot prosper, right? You cannot have a good company. So, and he believed in that. And so to your point, you know, at one point we wanted to be the largest provider of natural gas only company in the industry. And so in that, we made a bunch of acquisitions. And so in that, there's different culture. So Bob wanted us to make sure that whether you were in Louisiana, Mississippi, Colorado, Tennessee, that the culture was the same. And so he was very intentional and deliberate by making sure that we provide a good workplace where employees want to come to work every day, right? So he developed this thing called Atmos. Atmos is a 3-day workshop. It used to be a little longer, but it really allows employees to come there and learn about themselves. It's kind of there's like 14 different modules, and one is called Awareness of Self, where we really think inside of, what makes us tick. And there's also a lot of different concepts that we cover during this workshop. And it's a facilitated workshop by trained facilitators to allow employees to gain insight on their own personal experiences. We all have perceptions based on how we were brought up. And that's what's so unique about diversity is that, we can learn from others' experiences. And it's important for us to be authentic in that, to say that this is who I am, and my perception does matter, right? Sometimes we create these blind spots that we don't realize that we have. But the more diverse group you have, the more you're able to achieve success and work through those blind spots. So yes, 3-day workshop. They go in. We invest. We transport employees to the Dallas metro area, and they go through this workshop. There's concepts like be here now and be at your best. Bring out the best in others. Make a difference. Focus on the future. There's concepts like the results cone, how our thinking changes our behavior, and our behavior gets results. So there's I wish I could have more time to really kind of walk you through all the information, but I will say that it's a life-changing workshop that not only it makes employees do really well at work, but it bleeds into the workplace, it bleeds into their community, it bleeds into their relationships. So we continue to hear a lot of positive feedback of how Atmosphere has made a difference in our employees' lives. Yeah, we have these refreshers throughout the enterprise because it's been probably 15, 20 years for a lot of employees since they've gone through the training. And there was a point in time where, when we were acquiring all these different companies, we really had to get them bought into the culture. But now, how do we sustain that? So we do these refreshers. We go back, because as these new employees go through the onboarding process and they come back to their respective locations, they're excited about what they learned during that 3-day workshop. And so we want to make sure those employees that's been there 15, 20 years kind of get that refresher so they can also be excited. And they can understand how do we communicate with one another? What type of behavior styles do we have? How do employees want to be talked to? Those types of things. So that's one way that we are sustaining our culture, by having these refreshers throughout all 6 of our divisions.
Great. Well, thanks, Ed. So as Scott mentioned, there's different layers of diversity. It's not just race. Normally when people hear diversity, they think race. But there's disabilities, there's socioeconomics, there's the way political, there's the way you think, there's religion. And there's one that comes up a lot. There's gender, there's age, there's sexual orientation. So today we can't talk about all of those, but we're going to talk with Kimberly and NASTASI about age in the workforce. In 2008, study shows that the economic downturn, that people were staying in the workforce longer, not just because of that, because they were healthier and they were happy to be in the workforce. Studies also show in 4 years that the workforce of people of the age of 55 and older are going to be 25% from before it was 12, 14. Can you talk about how we can work together? A lot of people talk about the differences, but there's some positives about having a workforce with 5 generations in it. Can you talk to us about that?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for inviting me to be here today. I really appreciate the opportunity. This is a wonderful subject, and I think a lot of times when we start talking about generations, we go straight into the negatives. We want to talk about, well, this generation should have retired, or this generation, they're entitled. But the fact of the matter is, and what you just said, is there's so many positive attributes about each. And so if we stop putting people in boxes and we stop stereotyping them, and we really look at what does each group bring to the table. So for example, baby boomers didn't retire necessarily when we thought that they would, but think about all of the institutional knowledge they have. And if they were to leave, what are we doing to transfer that knowledge? Do we have mentor programs in place? Are we capturing that information? So there's a lot of value that comes from experience. On the other hand, we have Gen Z that's in the workforce, and this is 25 years or younger. They come in with just complete ideas. They don't have any preconceived notions. They don't have a lot of experience. So the way that they think about things is so new and fresh and innovative. And so if you stop and you say, what do you think about that? Or, you know, we have this program, what would you do if you were in charge of it? And really listen to the feedback, then you can take what they're telling you and apply it and make it better for everybody. Because we get into our routines and we do things because we've always done them that way. That doesn't mean it's always the best way. So it's really understanding each other and understanding the strengths of every generation, because they all have amazing strengths, and then figuring out how we can capitalize on them. One way that we can do that very easily is to purposely create groups where we do it cross generations. So when we're forming committees or special projects, if we identify people and we put them together in the groups, people begin to work with each other, and they say, okay, you're not just a Gen Xer, you're not a millennial, you're a person, and here's what I'm learning from you. And I'll tell you, for millennials, where they get a bad rap, and I don't agree with a lot of it, they're a big generation, and they have a lot of power because the sheer size of them. But one of the things that we can accredit to the millennials is they're demanding things that other people have always wanted. They're just not afraid to ask for it. So a lot of the things that we see that millennials are bringing into the workplace, everybody else wants the same thing too. But with the sheer volume of them and their work to live attitude, they're now demanding them. And so the workplace is changing and everyone's benefiting.
So you talked about the different ways they can bring groups together, and what are some ideas that you can give them, some things that you've done that you can, are there mentoring programs, or can you talk to the groups that say, you know, I have that going on in my organization, what can I do to make it happen? Something that's quick and easy. We have it going on in our office. We have a diverse group, age, and tell us what we can do to make this work and happen if it's something we want to do right now, instantly.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, the first thing, and you said mentoring, and then I just mentioned the committees. I mean, the easiest thing that you can do is put people in the room together. And it doesn't have to be face-to-face. It could be digital. You need to look at everybody's preferences. But if you start having people collaborate together, then they start to get to know each other. So that doesn't cost any money. It's just simply pairing people together. And that's in a more group setting, so you can be more inclusive of all the generations. The other thing is mentoring. And I think, you know, Ingalls Shipbuilding does an amazing job at this in the terms of, we have so many master shipbuilders that have been there 40 plus years. That's amazing. What they know and how they work, it's just extraordinary. So people coming in where maybe they don't understand safety the way that master shipbuilders do, or they don't understand how all of the expertise of the skill set yet. In order to pair them together so they can learn, and maybe the master shipbuilder isn't as caught up on the new technology as the Gen Z. Pairing them together, it has, in our company, has been such a positive thing, and you see it from both sides. They're very thankful for that opportunity to learn from each other because they're both bringing something to the table.
Great, thank you. You were talking about mentoring. You were talking about just being intentional and bringing people in the room. Judd, I love you, but I'm going to skip over you. I'm going to go to LAKEYSHA, and when you're saying bringing people in the room, you're talking about the different ages and the things that you're doing, innovative ways of training and mentoring. LAKEYSHA is here. She's a trial lawyer, and you can see in her bio, but she has done an amazing job with us at the Junior League of Jackson, and I say us because I'm a proud member of the Junior League of Jackson. And what the Junior League, sometimes they get a bad rap, but LAKEYSHA, please talk about the bold and innovative ways you guys have we've brought the Junior League to the forefront with training women to be great in their careers, in their homes, in their communities, and just the perception of what the Junior League is, the reality, and the bold steps you took to make these things happen and make the Junior League reflect, or help the Junior League reflect and represent the communities that they're representing and they're helping.
Thank you, Kathy. I can't take the credit. I am following in the footsteps of several presidents and administrations prior to me that started this. For those who may not know, the Junior League of Jackson is likely the largest women's organization in the state. We have 2,400 paid members. So very large organization. We're the 6th largest junior league in the world. So we bear a lot of responsibility, we believe, for being sure that we have an environment where our members' voices are heard and valued across all spectrums. And so we began very intentionally in 2014 formalizing our efforts to increase the diversity of our membership, but also to go a step farther and make sure that all of our members felt included in that. And so we began in 2014, again, formalizing by having our very first diversity and inclusion task force. And that task force was comprised of about 20 members across, again, a broad spectrum of membership categories. As Kathy said, we do believe diversity encompasses everything and not simply the obvious of race. But we had women from various ethnic, religious backgrounds. We had women who worked both inside and outside the home. And speaking of perceptions, a lot of people don't know that right now, over 85% of our members work outside the home. So one thing that we had to think about in terms of diversity was being sure that we were, had become flexible in being sure that our offerings were such that women who worked outside the home were able to take advantage of them as well. So including more things that happened at night or happened on weekends was one of the things we did. We looked at physical ability and undertook a very costly renovation to our headquarters to make it ADA compliant. That was not something that we were required to do by regulations, but that was something that we knew was the right thing to do. So we did that over a multi-year period. We also took a look, honestly, at our external image and perceptions that people might have about what the league is and who is a member of the league, perceptions that there were only a certain type of person that could be a member, or a certain type of person maybe of a certain economic class, those types of things. And we were very intentional about looking at that and starting both an external and internal communications plan for how to move the needle on changing what the image of the league was, to be sure that the public image matched what we really were doing. And so that was the first start, and we have tried to embed diversity and inclusion throughout our league. We adopted a diversity and inclusion statement that is in our governing documents and by which we try to live by, that talks about respecting and appreciating all voices and about not disadvantaging or advantaging anyone because of perceived differences. So that was a big step that we took, and we've just implemented it at every level in training. Each year we have approximately 175 new members that join us, many of which work for your wonderful organizations. And those ladies, we started having a very intentional training curriculum for them that includes training on cultural competence at each one of their sessions. We started off the year doing a poverty simulation with the assistance of Operation Shoestring to really give our members an idea and be able to be more sensitive to the community that we serve. We do over 30 community projects each year, all done in the city of Jackson, and we encounter a broad population of people, and we want our members to be culturally competent, not just when we're dealing with each other as other members, but when we're serving as ambassadors for the league and the community. So I probably said too much, so I'll just wait for the next question.
No, you said image a lot, image, and you talked about being intentional, and you talked about being inclusive. One of my favorite quotes is, diversity is inviting someone to the prom. Inclusion is dancing with them at the prom. Belonging is knowing the songs that they're playing at the prom. So I think Junior League does that. We go to the prom together. We dance and we sing together at the Junior League. It may be over wine, but we do it. And we have a good time doing it. So we're talking about image here. And BRANT, I'm getting back to LAKEYSHA but for a second, but BRANT, I want to go to you. BRANT is on our board at MEC, and we talk about image, and image is relative. Someone can say, I think the image is great, and someone else can say, well, maybe not. But when you're looking at bringing people in the league, you want a positive image. When you're talking about workforce development and bringing industry here, you have to have the image to invite them here. So let's talk about, we've talked about the culture. We've talked about the age and how to work with that. We've talked about image, being inclusive. We talked about being intentional. Let's talk about, okay, we have a workforce here. Once we get them here, this is what we're going to do. Now, how are we going to get them here? Give me some, BRANT, give me some innovative ways. We've talked about some things, some innovative ways to get people here, and we talked about brain drain a lot, and those that are leaving. How can we keep them here? How can we get them to come back? And just give us innovative ways, things that you think can happen to make this happen.
Okay, thank you. My friendship with Kathy goes back about 10 years to Leadership Mississippi, and I've been on the board of MEC. We had a conference call, I guess, a couple months ago, and instead of speaking up over 30 people or so, I just emailed Kathy my thoughts afterwards, and that led to me being on the panel. So I'll think twice next time I email Kathy, but thank you for having me here. I appreciate that. But I had emailed Kathy some thoughts about the brain drain, and she asked me to kind of just tell my story just a little bit. I am a born and raised Mississippian that left Mississippi for 5 years or so and was able to come back. And my story may be a little bit different than others. I really didn't intend to leave Mississippi. I had a job in Jackson right out of college and was very happy to stay here, but after a year or so of the training, they didn't have enough volume to justify another full-time position, and they transferred me to Nashville. And that was a blessing. I enjoyed it a lot. It was a great time. I was still young and single then, and met a lot of people, was able to advance in my career, but had the opportunity to come back and join a family business here in Mississippi. And while personally the timing might not have been perfect, it was time for me to come back in my career. And I did, but I also looked around and noticed a lot of my friends in Nashville at the time who were maybe a little bit more, or a little further along the line in terms of having a spouse and a family. When they had the opportunity to move back to Mississippi, they were taking it. And I realized that those friends may or might not be there for a long time in Nashville. And so what I think we look at it, if we're going to, from a brain drain perspective, if you've got a kid that graduates college or high school and they want to go to a big city environment, with all due respect, and I love Jackson and DeSoto County and the coast, those are not metropolitan environments that we can compete with in Atlanta or a Birmingham or a Dallas or Nashville for that matter if a kid really wants a big city environment. But when they get to a point in their career or their life where they feel like they want to come back to Mississippi, we need to have jobs available for them to come back to. And I certainly respect and appreciate the job that Glenn McCullough and Governor Bryant have done from a development standpoint. I'm really excited to hear this morning Governor-elect Reeves and Secretary Watson talk about a focus on economic development. But you know, I'm fortunate enough to have been involved in the Golden Triangle Development Link as well, and that certainly does not make me a developer, but I have been privy to a number of prospective employers coming to the state and looking at our area, and some successes and some swings and misses. But one thing that I think we really need to focus on as a state is attracting the type of jobs that you would want your kids to come back to. not just an employer that brings 300 or 400 jobs to the state, but an employer that may bring a large capital investment, maybe 40 or 50 jobs, but 40 or 50 high-paying, advanced, skilled jobs that we would be happy for our children to take. And I think there are ways that we can continue to attract prospective employers that offer those type of things. And then the workforce development, of course, is a big component of that, so that we have a trained and skilled workforce that's ready and willing to take those jobs, and then we have people that are Mississippians that are expatriates, so to speak, that are willing to come back to take them as well.
Well, today I'm going to be talking about generations in the workplace. So there's currently 5 generations working in the workplace, and that can cause a lot of challenges. So it's important that we understand what the differences are in the generations and then figure out how we can work together to be more successful.
What kind of response have you seen so far?
It's been a great day. There's a lot of people here. People are interested in this topic. It's important for our businesses. So people want to know how to improve so we can attract and retain talent.
What priorities do you see for economic development and creating jobs in the future?
It's got to be workforce development. We have so many people out there that are involved in some type of workforce development, workforce training. We've got the best community colleges in America. You can ask anybody that. So we've got to consolidate and streamline our workforce development so we're getting the most out of it. But we went from paying about $125 million on unemployment to paying about $56 million. We've saved almost $100 million or more on unemployment payments alone, but we still have about 50,000 people that are not working, and by the way, we got about 50,000 job openings.
I think, quite frankly, workforce development. I think it continues to be at the forefront, not only in Mississippi, but all across the country. When I talk to my counterparts around the country, everybody's focused on that issue, finding a skilled, trained, quality workforce, getting people to fill the jobs that are available now, and really preparing for making sure we have people to fill the jobs of the future.